this part's not going to be nearly as long as that first video. Look at this though. But I did not realize there is a natural way to generate Podzol. Bork. Borky doggo. So yeah, I got quite a yield from that. What are some things that I can remove from here? More. Oh, crap. But how? What exactly is even dark enough? Oh yeah, they built this whole bridge and it doesn't have enough light on it. Crap. Well then, I'm gonna say that one was kind of on them. And they can fix it later. I don't have any of the stuff for that once they're in here. The slab's in here somewhere. Slabs only work if they're on the lower half. I don't know if they realize that. This is looking nice. Make some lanterns or something later as well. There. Looks nice. Jungle tree. I know that was lazy, but Bork. not mean to take that. It must have blown up in the thing. Steak and rice pilaf tonight. It was tasty. Oh, this is offset now. Oh, but it's dangerous. I'll have to fix it later though. Otherwise, I will notice it every time I go by. Multiple A's. We'll put it that way. So, oh, put up that coral. I need that coral. Actually, I need that coral at the other base. Go over there. I wonder how this looks with that, this one. Mojang. Oh, the graphics updated. Yes. I think that's what I need for those. Open GL error. Ow. So this is a spruce place. That's what they're called, spruce places. What's in the spruce place, though? There's some poppies. Something interesting over here. What is this? Well, that kind of scared the crap out of me. Smoker. Is there still people here, or is it like a dead village? Okay, so it is a village. Man. Blooms and sheep. You can keep your potatoes. Seems like the spruce economy in my area has gone up significantly, so I'm going to take all of the spruce related stuff. There's grindstones everywhere. Just a grindstone kind of village. Good. Meh. 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 Is that this village? Is that the whole village? Man, this house on the edge of town is pretty nice. $48, $26, $71. $15,504. There we go. Hey there, cow. Whoa. Look at this ravine. I need to switch the shaders for this. Options. Try. Let's go back to this one for just a second. think someone is up playing with the dogs by the sound of it. Lots of silly stompy stomp 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 stomp. Oh, I just barely made it across. Wolfie Wolf over here getting me some mutton. Chicken. The fox over here. I don't think he'll be here if I were to come back. Levitating plants. Alright. Levitating trees. This is a mixed forest. There's a mountain. I don't really need to go to a mountain for anything. Jenkins. Do you see this bloody wool sheep? This is from a wolf. Cow. Mountains. Donuts. Oh. Look pretty. There's just nothing for me to really do there. Time to go between the mountains. There's gonna be some natural cobblestone in just a minute. Nice. Maybe it's just all natural stone or that. So this is cool. Llamas. Oh. Delicious. Eat a chicken. Foxy sure is running the same direction as me. I eat another chicken. This one is a red chicken. Another village. What's in this one? I don't really know if there's much use for extra feathers. Hey, natural brown sheep. 2 natural brown sheep, that's weird. Cow. Uh, uh, uh. Ooh, and they have a mushroom growing in their house. I mean, sure, why not, I guess. All the pigs decided that they were just gonna be in the water trough. Great. Man, brown sheep everywhere. Right. I'm very entertained by the fact that the pigs just decided that the water trough was the place to be. Like, inside it. And that thing was too dark. Chirp. Squeaky boyo, I hear you. Where's this? Is this the whole box? Yes. Sandwich bread. Berries. Money. Somewhere out in the wide open. Here. I do think that while that grass will get destroyed by a plant, it can't grow by them. Wood. This will do. Mm-hmm. Did you know that if you merge 4 spruce trees, it becomes a redwood? I think it's the northwest one. This one. There we go. Couldn't find out which button I have my fingers on. It's that awkward delay. Still have nothing. So alright, so this is on a mountain, it appears. Got spruce. We got spruce aplenty out here. Cow. Brosis. And you're gonna hurt yourself. You're going upward. Upward is dangerous for bunnies. In this game, anyway. I feel like rabbits should be immune to fall damage in this, because in reality, rabbits are, at least regular rabbits, tend to be light enough that their terminal velocity isn't high enough for them to be particularly hurt by normal falls. There might be the ability for them to actually take fall damage, but I know that they're light enough, it isn't going to be as likely to happen. It's also, ooh, that's cool. It's also part of why cats can survive falls that seem like they'd be completely fatal to humans. Because they're lighter and they have a decent enough control over their aerodynamics as they fall to usually try and slow themselves a bit. They don't take as much damage from a drop as a person would. People are heavy enough to be fragile from a fall. I'm so sad the soda's discontinued. Everybody tell Dr. Pepper to bring back the berry Dr. Pepper because it was good. Dark berry Dr. Pepper is very good. Just like apple sprecher is really good, but it's seasonal, so I can't get it right now. Makes me a sad panda. Well, this is a very interesting situation right here. It's only a couple blocks away from being a safer drop. Rip. All because I wanted to save that stupid dirt block. I could have even waited until the water had spread a little bit and fallen into the water, probably. Well, that fall's consistent for me, apparently. So we'll go past this. Go over there, we'll see that bunny again. If it hasn't fallen and died. Which there's a chance. See, so this is one of the issues with why I'm actually okay with warping now. Is, as you can see with this, this would just be boring to watch over and over if I died and was having to go back for my stuff often. Where's that giant chasm that I so recklessly threw myself into? Cow. You're a pretty cow. I like that cow's pattern. I wonder if certain patterns are more common than others. Cows headed along this direction last. I'll know by if there's a pool and a giant hole. Here's a pool, but there's no giant hole. Oh well, maybe they're gone forever. Would have liked to have kept that shovel and that pick, or that shovel and that sword, but oh well. Worse things have happened. Oh, look at this. It's very pretty. Those bushes. I know I have some. Does that mean I can't have any more? No, sir, it does not mean such. See, when I know what I'm doing, I don't. Basically, I rolled a nat 1 to my dex check on that. We got peonies, rose bushes. I guess the whole idea for why they switched the rose to a poppy is that typically a rose, well, actually, I think biologically a rose won't just grow one stalk with one bloom. That it will always grow in like a bush or a tree form of some sort, or a vine. You know Borkney? You pant. That's fine. A wolf is a very large doggo. Alright, we found one. Alright, so 30913. $67, $164. 22. Alright, so axes. Oh, perfect. I want to go back to Japan. It's on my mind a lot. I would never want to live there, as I've mentioned before in a previous conversation on here, because of the way that the business structure and the way that people are expected to be there. But I do want to go back to Japan. It's a beautiful place, and there's always more to see there. I had unique and special experiences every single time I've been. Also, I've only been able to add most of my friends from Japan. Most of them do not converse on predominantly Western, social media, so I do not really get to talk to them, which is pretty sad because both the kids who we hosted here, who are definitely not kids now, but the ones who we hosted here and the ones who hosted me, which was the same amazing family every single time I got to go, we're all fantastic people, and I would love to be able to talk to them again. I would have loved to have done it around the time that I'd learned Japanese. That would have been fantastic. But I did not have the money to travel at that time, which is too bad because I don't remember much of it at all. The course was a very fast-paced course. I had to learn the basics enough that was a testable level of the basics within, let's see, 4 weeks. I had to learn an entire semester's worth of Japanese in 4 weeks. And I did fine in the class, but I did not retain much of it, which is a real shame because it was a stressful class, but it was rewarding to be able to learn so well. That was the most studying and work I ever had to do for a single class. I spent 15 hours a day on that class. My honors thesis didn't take that much. My honors analytical essay didn't take that much, which I guess was actually the higher demand of the two, because the honors thesis was stuff I'd been working on the whole time I was in college. But the Japanese class, on the other hand, took, 15 hours per day of practice, of study, of reading, of practicing the writing, doing the assignments. The class was about 5 hours a day, and then I legitimately, like, not even the normal, you usually budget about twice as many hours to your homework time as you do study time, or as you do class time. But, like, I actually legitimately did use up that much time every single class period, or every single day, 5 days a week. But I really was interested in what I was doing. The teachers did a great job. It just was a lot of work. But there are a lot of places I haven't gone to yet in Japan that I'd love to go to. I'd love to go to Kobe, Japan, and Koga, Japan, and Osaka. And there's definitely always more I could do in Tokyo. I absolutely would love to go back to Kyoto. It's like the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. I would love to see farther down the southern parts. The southernmost part that we went to was Hiroshima. And it's a very sobering experience being a Westerner. And going to Hiroshima, we did go to the museum. It takes some emotional fortitude to get through that museum and actually go through all the way and pay attention to everything there's to pay attention to, and absorb everything that there is to absorb in that museum, because it's heavy. It's very heavy. You see like toys of kids who are outside. You see shadowy figments on pieces of concrete where people were standing at the exact moment of the blast. You see like ceramic that has boiled and bubbled to the point that it, like, I mean, it was molten, basically. Molten ceramic, which isn't even a material you frequently think of as getting to melting, let alone boiling. I mean, you're talking so much heat. And in just an instant. I mean, it's incomprehensible. I mean, it was probably incomprehensible to the scientists who first discovered it, but the witnessing the actual real world practice outcome of what happens to an explosion of that type and the exposure to the radiation and understanding the gravity of it and what it meant. It's I mean, when Dad and I walked out of the museum, we were essentially completely silent. It was a very sobering thing, but it's one of the, I won't get into the ethics of whether it was right or wrong. I do have a specific opinion one way, and I know that there are people who have opinions on both sides, and it falls under my politics argument. So even though a lot of people would consider the answer obvious, what they think whether it was or was not worth it, I will say though that the experience, seeing it being where the aftermath was, is pretty brutal. I mean, it really makes you think. It really is a very, I mean, I'm just going in circles at this point, but it is. It's very, very sobering, is probably the best word. But not everything was so dark, obviously. There were a lot, like, so I have really bad back trouble. I've had back trouble since I was about probably 10, 11. I started going to a chiropractor when I was 12 at one point. I don't anymore. I just try to keep my muscles in as good a condition as I can. My posture is still awful. But yeah, I've always had back trouble. So one of the biggest problems with going to Japan is the flight is legitimately more than half a day from where I live. And sitting for that long makes me legitimately sick to my stomach. And not like just for a little while. It took me about 3 days to recover every single time on the flight from Japan. Which, stinger of stingers on that, usually meant I did not get to see anything of Tokyo. Because when I was in Tokyo, I was still so sore and sick that I couldn't recuperate in time before we left. And so, usually at night when I was trying to lay down and sleep, the ache in my back would be at its like peak. And so at night, I would be absolutely miserable, kind of just trapped in my bed, unable to sleep, sore, sick to my stomach, needing food but not being able to keep food down. So it's a fortitude battle when I've gone to Japan, and it was still, I mean, it was miserable, but it still to me has been worth it every single time I've gone. And I really do want to go back, even despite all of that, because it really is a fantastic experience. There are a lot of other places that I like to travel, but I don't have any previous experience to say whether would enjoy it in the end or not. I tend to expect I would. I'd love to go to Seattle. I had a great time in New York City. I would go back to New York City in a heartbeat as well. I would love to go to a lot of European countries. I'd love to go to London and Paris and Prague and Barcelona and Seville and Munich and Berlin and a lot of parts of the Netherlands and quite a few areas in like Denmark and the southern parts of the Slavic areas and or the well yeah Slavic areas too, but Scandinavian areas because I'm not too good with cold. Cold makes me miserable. It makes my back sore, which goes back to the other issue. And the other problem with traveling to Europe is you can get a lot done in a week in Japan, kind of getting from one area to the next. But Europe, you might be able to get through a lot of country in Europe in a week. But you can't do anything like that where you're covering like I the one time we went from the north central where like Tokyo is. I guess it's almost like direct central on the eastern edge of Japan, of Tokyo, and went all the way to Hiroshima in 10, 15 days. And if I could afford to do it again, oh, you bet I would. Um, I'd love to have more time, obviously. I'd love to be able to stay for like a month or 2 months. But it becomes very expensive. Just going is like, what, 10 grand, I think? The only reason that I was able to afford to go is because we had some subsidies through the government because it was part of a foreign exchange. And it made the cost significantly cheaper than it would be if I were to try and pay out of my own pocket. And being one of the most eager people in town, I suppose, I applied on numerous occasions and lucked out and got to go numerous times. And I took a lot away from it. I think it taught me a lot about gratitude and it probably, even though I still was immature much later than that, I think it taught me a lot about maturity because especially the second and third times I went, the group I was with didn't, well, even the first time really, the group I was with didn't have much interaction with their host families outside of the time that they were at home. And even then, the group I was with the second time I was with my dad, third time I was with another group. The second time that I went, or third time I went rather, the third time that I went, the people who were in the family people who went with me to the family that I knew who had done this generous thing and hosted me and okay, so one of the things about when you go and you have a host family, especially with this group that we were with, is they'll spend money like that on you. You have to be very careful when you're looking at something. If you seem too interested in it, they'll buy it for you, like immediately. No questions asked. And it's just how it is. Um, and so the first time that I was there, we went to Yokohama as a family, and we went to the mall several times, and I mean, just general touristy kind of have fun stuff. And I use this. And we had a really good time. The group I was with that time was pretty. I mean, okay, so here was the problem. Here was the biggest problem that I had with this group is that the group I was with, the kid who I was with specifically, he had not much interaction with the family that we were with. He kind of stayed on his own, and when we went back to the groups, he would hang out with the people who are from our hometown, instead of hanging out with his host family. Oh, why did I do that? Oh, I meant to do it all. And he wouldn't spend time with them, and so I had a lot more fun hanging out with the kid who was well, both of the kids. The family that I was with had two kids. Both of the kids that were in the host family, I had a fantastic time hanging out with them and talking to them, and I mean, we just had a fantastic time. And I was kind of upset when I left that I was the only one who, in our host family, really was very grateful seeming. Uh, so when you go, you're expected to bring a lot of gifts because they're gonna shower you with gifts. I mean, I don't know that I want to specifically actually literally quantify, but I would not be surprised if every time I went, the host family I was with spent $10,000 on us. Like, they took us to theme parks, they bought us food every day, and I mean like a lot of food. They bought us things we saw at the mall that seemed interesting, even though we had our own money, and usually I would try and buy the things on my own. Um, if you mentioned a place, they'd try and make it so you could get there to go experience it. I mean, they were fantastic, wonderful people. And so I felt really bad that the person I was with just didn't appear to me as grateful. Um, I was bawling when we left that house because I thought that, I mean, in just even a couple days, it felt like family. I only spent 3 days with them the first time and the third time, and I think 5 days the second time. I don't remember if we had longer on the second time, but the family was amazing, and they really they treated you like you were part of their family, and were very caring and considerate and friendly, nice people, and loved to hang out. And if you knew a word in Japanese, they were just, so entertained that, oh, Japanese, and I mean, it doesn't take much. One of the times that I went, we went to an elementary school, and they had speeches that we could, give. They had us choose whether we wanted to give them or if someone else in our group wanted to give them or whatever. And I volunteered to do the speech at the elementary school. And the speech they expect you to give is just something simple in English, just like, "Hey, thank you for letting us come to your beautiful town. Thank you for hosting us. Your school is fantastic. Whatever, you know, basic stuff like that." But I got this crazy idea while I was there that, oh, I want to try and do it in Japanese. So I wrote the whole thing up earlier and asked the translators if they would be able to translate it for me and write it so that I would be able to read it because I couldn't read hiragana or kanji or katakana or any of that very well. And so they wrote the whole thing out in Romaji for me, and I got to give the speech in Japanese. And the kids cheering, I mean, that's probably the closest I'll ever experience in my life to what it's like to be a rock star. I mean, the kids were cheering out loud, all the teachers and the people who were with us were all applauding and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure that it sounded very English Japanese and not very Japanese, but I tried. I didn't say Sue in a like a day Sue in a more populated area of the country and stuff like that. I tried. And I tried to say it as des and you know, arigato and saying things as Japanese as I could emulate with my untrained vocal abilities. Great, thank you. Um, but yeah, and even with what was probably a Westerner speaking Japanese kind of Japanese, that they could easily tell was a not a native speaker kind of situation. They were so excited. I mean, it was really, that is probably one of the coolest points I've ever felt in my life. That and recently I fixed a flashlight for a kid at work, and the kid was the kid was, as just a general kid, a very polite and really energetic, happy kid. And I think he was annoying some of the other people at the store just because he was so full of energy. But he was so thankful. He gave me a hug, which I was super weirded out by because I didn't know if that would like upset somebody. But he gave me a hug at work, and he was just so happy. He's like, "Thank you so much for fixing my flashlight. You're fantastic. You're, just going crazy about it." And it was just a flashlight is my mindset, but it was the greatest moment of his day. And so that was another time where I felt pretty awesome. But when I gave that speech and they responded the way they did, I really did feel like the coolest guy on the trip. And my but the problem that I had the so I digress because that's what I do. I'm very good at digressing. Um, the host family I was with have hosted me 3 times, and uh fam uh they hosted me and my dad the second time. They hosted me and one other kid the first time, and on the third time they hosted me and 3 other kids and paid for their food, their travel. They drove around in a car in Japan for 7 days or 3 days, and they spent time with us and took us shopping and took us to all these cool places and gave us a fantastic experience while we were there. And most of the kids in every single group I was with talked with the other kids from our class. And I don't know if it's because I was naturally already a bit of a loner throughout my entire life, or whether I was just making a better opportunity of the experience by actually talking with the family that had done so much for us. But I was kind of peeved every single time by how, I guess, selfish is how I felt it was. That the people who had just received basically a 5-star hotel kind of experience, provided by one family who has maybe 2 incomes if both families were working, which probably isn't even the case in most cases in Japan, who took a week off probably from work at minimum so they could get things planned out and keep everything clean and everything ready for these kids. And the kids wouldn't spend a whole lot of time with them, it felt. The family would be doing all this stuff and they'd be talking in a group and not spending time over there with us. And by us, I mean me and the host family, because usually I would be talking with the host family. I didn't really talk with the kids who I was with. Um, None of my friends really got to go. I really wish Shin would have gone. I think he would have had a great time, but he didn't ever apply. Um, and I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have had a great time. It's hard to tell since I'm not Shin. But I feel like personally he would have had a fantastic experience. And so but yeah, so I don't know if it was just but even the first time I had classmates who were my age. The second time I think I was the only one from my school, my particular school. The third time. The second time I was the only youth who got to go. It was part of an anniversary trip, and all the others were adults, which made some of the things weird because it meant they went to like this $300 restaurant one night, like $300 per course, and they had like 5 or 6 courses. I don't know. It was like crazy, crazy expensive. And so there was stuff like that when that happened, actually, my dad and I didn't even go to that because it was so expensive, and they knew I wouldn't probably want to eat it because it was like fish so fresh it's still moving kind of stuff. Um, And so we didn't go to that. We walked around in Kyoto on our own, and we went to like what essentially seemed like a craft or pawn shop kind of, maybe a little bit of both thing. Probably closer to like a pawn shop, but they had like models and stuff, is why I say it could have been both. And so we got to go to Kyoto, and honestly, I think it was probably for the better because I loved Kyoto. I was blown away by Kyoto. I thought it was gorgeous. I thought it was, one, very scenic, and two, the constructions were very beautiful. It really was just an amazingly beautiful town. And so there were weird things, is what I'm saying about that particular trip, and that being the only youth, I was around a bunch of people who were drinking and stuff like that, which was kind of peculiar. And I didn't drink, even though I probably would have been able to get away with drinking sake. I really haven't ever had much interest in alcohol. And even now that I'm an adult, I don't really have much interest in alcohol. I'm not, I'm definitely not a partier. I know this blows some of you guys away, that the guy who spends hours and hours most days playing video games isn't, doesn't party like a, party like a rock star, as it is. Um, so yeah, I know that is just mind-blowing news, but that said, during that time, I was with a bunch of adults, and so there'd be nights where they'd like be drinking at a thing, and because we'd be getting a cab home or whatever anyway. Um, and so there were times where we would have stuff like that going on, and I'd be the only one who was probably sober by the end of the night, and we would do more adult stuff like going to uh, parks and going to temples and going to stuff like that. And I still had plenty of fun doing all that, but it was more oriented towards adults as opposed to just kids. And so it was a unique experience compared to the others because the others were more aimed at all these cool things that kids are going to enjoy about Japan. And so, like, the only thing I didn't do during all three trips is, even though we had a chance to go, there's a like lookout point called Shonen Daira in one of the towns we were in. Every single time, because of the fact that I'm related to some police officers, I ended up getting to tour the police station instead, because what would happen is the chief of police would give me something to give to their police chief in Japan, so they would send me, and every single time it ended up being during that same part, which was kind of funny. And so I was the only one who got to tour the police station both times that I did get, or well, all three times that I got to tour the police station. The second time, I guess I wasn't because I went with my dad. Because I went with my dad on just about everything on that trip. But oh, I was confused for a second. Um, but yeah, so I didn't ever get to see what was Shonen Daira, which is this lookout point that's apparently really, really cool and beautiful. And so that's one of the things that basically everyone else in the group has gotten to do that I didn't. And so that's kind of disappointing, but maybe one day, if I do get to go again, which I absolutely love the idea. I don't necessarily know the practice because, like, I'm going to convention in December, and that convention alone is going to be like probably close to $2,000, and that's a lot of money for me. Let alone a flight, which is probably 2,000 plus hotels, which are going to be several $100s for as long as I'm going to be there, plus food, which is significantly more expensive in a larger town, larger city. Um, Being in another place, which means that I have limited communication, which means there might be things that if I were a local, I would know that would save me money that I wouldn't know in my situation. There's a whole bunch of things you have to figure when you travel to a foreign country. If you can speak the language, it saves you a lot of money because you can emulate a local to some extent. And emulating a local can save you lots of money. Because if they think, like, okay, so if you were to travel, for example, to Mexico, and you didn't speak Spanish, one of the common customs that is, it's actually common in a lot of places where you'll have marketplace type things or bazaars or things like that, is that haggling is an expected part of the culture. So if you are from those areas and you go to a place and someone offers you money, you're expected to, oh, well, you want $43 for it? Well, I'll give you 25. 25, that's way too low. I mean, that's actually part of the social experience of being in those places. You're expected as a person to haggle. It's just part of the business. It's part of being there. It's part of the culture. So if you go as a foreigner and you go to a place where they have these bazaars or marketplaces or stuff like that, and you just hand them the money at the price that they offer, it could offend them, except for the fact that they probably expect it by now because they are like, oh, tourists are going to be tourists. But so you'll miss cultural cues by not being from the area, obviously, unless you do your research, which is heavily encouraged. I will say that anytime you go somewhere, before you go there, especially if it's another country, do some sort of research about the culture before you go, because otherwise you'll look really stupid. Because, like, when I went, we had several times where we were with these people that they were doing all this kind of stuff, and, you know, I loved giving gifts back to them, even. It was so happy and satisfying. And I feel like it's probably culturally expected that you give gifts in return, but they're not going to ask because it's impolite. And I might have given plenty of gifts during that time, but not everyone would have. Not everyone did. Like, there were times where, like, we went to, like, an arcade and we won this stuff, and I gave some of the things that I won to the kids that were in our family. And stuff, just even, when I could, because I thought that it was, well, I won three of these, so you guys can have one. Stuff like that. But, so definitely research a little bit on it. Like, don't stick your chop. This is a common one that they'll tell you in it because it's a cultural cue that by now, probably, no matter where you are, you should know, even if you don't. You probably should know by now, as globalist as we've become, is don't stick your chopsticks straight into the middle of the rice and leave them sitting there. Set them over the top, because if you stick them in, it's kind of a thing that's symbolic of a funeral, usually. And so if you do it, it can, especially to a particularly superstitious person, it might be not only offensive but possibly like really worrying. It's also like you're not supposed to write in gray ink because gray ink is the color of the ink that they use at funerals and stuff like that. There's a lot of different little miniature culture things that you're not going to know if you don't do some research first. But so where I was going with this is, so in Japan you have those kind of culture things. In Mexico, like I said, at least at bazaars. I don't know so much in big cities, but I know like if you go to places that have like an outdoor marketplace or people with tabletops outside under, a little canopy, and they have their wares and they ask you a price, it's just socially expected that you will haggle. It's not like a thing that they'll be offended by. In fact, some places they might actually be offended if you didn't. Um, and so even simple things like that can change your landscape of your trip a lot. I don't think anyone's gonna want to get in a fight with you, but they might be like, that guy was a jerk. Um, but where was I going with all this? I don't know. I don't remember what my original point to that thing was. But that's a lot of information that I can give you from me. And when I list off places that I want to go, some of them I haven't done research on yet, but I would like to learn. I just, haven't had any justification to learn when there's lots of other stuff for me to do. And so yeah, I'd love to go to Seattle. I have not been. I've been told by many people that with my personality, the kind of music I listen to, you know, just a lot of the things about me as the dork that I am in particular would I would enjoy a lot about going to Seattle. I'd love to go to South Korea. There are some places I'd love to go that I don't ever expect to just because I'm usually worried about the dangers that can come with things from being who I am where I am. And one of those places that I'd love to go is Petra in Jordan. Um, Being from the Americas, it's not necessarily the safest thing in the world to go to Jordan, so I have not gone to Jordan. Um, I'd like to go to Dubai, but I definitely can't afford to go to Dubai. Everything's very expensive in Dubai, and it's a place for rich people anyway. Um, I'd like to go to almost any country you can name in Europe. I would find something that I would be able to enjoy. There are several places in Africa I'd like to go. I definitely would love to go to Egypt at some point. I would love to go to. Trying to think, there are some other places that most of them are more in the Middle East than in Japan, so I guess they'd be technically part of Asia or Japan. Then Africa, so I guess they're technically part of Asia. Because I'd love to go to like if it were ever safe for me, I'd love to go to certain areas of Iran. There's a lot of important cultural history in Iran. And I'd love to go to. I'm trying to think in my head off the map. I'd love to go to Australia. I'd love to go to Madagascar. I'd love to go to Bolivia. There were a few things that I wanted to go to in Bolivia that I learned about when I was in my Spanish classes. I'd love to go to Catalonia, which is technically Spain, although they may not be so happy if you say that to them there because they kind of identify as a separate country. Um, I'd love to go to. I'd go, like I said, I'd go back to New York City in a heartbeat. I have not been to California. I'd love to go to LA. I'd love to go to San Francisco. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of different places I'd love to travel in the world. Oh, sorry, Duck. I didn't see you there. Yeah, I'll show you the fox noises. Sorry. I was rambling and had this minimized and totally forgot these fox noises up here. Oh, they blink. I didn't notice that they blinked now. It's cute. I've never noticed that. Oh, you can have them on your shoulder? How do you get them off your shoulder, though? That's super cute that they will do that. Through the parrot. Oh, okay. Perch on the player's shoulder. Player. Shoulder. Left shoulder first. This mounts if the player jumps and does not land on a high enough surface. There. Okay, Duck, you are still here. I'm gonna say I didn't see you respond, so I didn't know if you'd left or not. Since I wasn't responding like a doofus. I forget, you can't play because you don't have a good enough computer? Is that what you'd said? Llamas. Let's see here. While I'm waiting for a reply, yeah. Oh, you can play now? What's your username? I'll add you to here so that way you can join whenever you have the time. There we go. I came here for a reason. I don't remember. What did I go here for? Well, I need to make my Celium farm sometime over here. Or do you have Minecraft? Oh yeah, I'd also like to go to Istanbul. I'd love to go to... Where's that? There's like a place in, I think it's the Lens near Oman. Or in Oman. I think there's some areas of South Africa I would have liked to visit at one point, although I don't know as much about how things are going over there right now. Oh, I remember what I came over here for. I would like to visit, like I said, there's a lot of places in the UK that I would like to visit. Is this not what you... What do you plant? See pickles on. Does it have to be a certain color, maybe? Using only on time. Coral block. Okay, so yes, I can from there make more. That look correct? B0. Does that look like the correct name? Alright, and then I can send you the server info here. Who was the last person that I sent it to? I sent it to someone recently. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, I did already send it to you. Cool. Well, now you can join whenever. Okay, underwater, they work as torches. That's the important part. Oh, this might... So 2 more. Bone meal has become more and more of an important item. For like casual play in Minecraft. For non-adventurer play. We should have spawned... I need to fix spawn since it's... I need to fix that. the basic rules are the usual no griefing and stuff like that, and then just for our own sanity, if you can plant saplings when you knock down a tree, that would be nice. They don't have to be in the same exact spot if you're trying to clear out an area, but plant them somewhere. Especially don't throw away saplings, unless you get like a billion of them, in which case you can use some in like the composter, but at least a 1-to-1, if not like a 3-to-1 would be super nice. Alright. 44. I don't remember that bush being there, actually. Okay, so you can't put bamboo in, but you can put in sugar cane. Ooh, and sugar cane has a pretty decent yield.